My name is Katie Zeppieri, and I'm the founder and CEO of the MicDrop agency. The MicDrop agency is a PR and marketing firm, and we work in the tech and entertainment sectors. So everything from Silicon Valley, venture-backed startups looking to grow and scale to the next level, all the way to reality TV stars and authors. We're here to help our clients tell their story and fundamentally make their mark. The opportunity for entrepreneurs in 2026 is massive. I think we have more tools and data available to us than ever before. And my challenge to you is, how do you use that in a way that's going to help further your mission and further your vision?
Okay, so let's do a little context.
Okay.
So downstairs we were talking about how PR is evolving. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about there, and your company, changing how perhaps it's welcoming or bringing value to market. Let's say, right, in like moving to America and opening the office in Austin. What about the product service mix here? You were talking about communications and how underneath communications, of course, is marketing and there's PR. Where do you see those things kind of intermingling, especially with your client needs that like MicDrop services?
Yeah, I think like PR, sometimes people come to you asking for PR services and they're expecting that doing so leads to immediate leads coming in the door. And I think that's one of the misconceptions that people have about PR is that I invest in, media, earned media relations, and that's going to automatically lead to phones ringing off the hook.
Right.
It's a little bit more complex than that. And I think PR belongs in the brand awareness bucket first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And it also takes time to build. So public relations is that larger earned trust and reputation. You don't earn trust with one media placement. Right? So a one-off media campaign, a one-off launch, and then you go quiet is not a sustainable PR strategy. So PR is something that you want to invest in for the long term.
Right.
It's something that, showing up regularly, consistently in front of your target audience or in the places that make sense for you and your business, mm-hmm. that's what's going to create this familiarity. And familiarity can help build the trust. It's a red flag if somebody's like, okay, with this media campaign, what is this going to lead for me in terms of sales? I would say, then you need to focus on demand generation.
Red flag when a potential client asks you that.
When a client thinks that PR is going to equate to a certain number of leads or that can be quantified in that way, that's a red flag. What they're looking for is marketing.
Sure.
They're looking for guaranteed placements. They're looking for guaranteed channels to reach their audience, which some can be earned, but a lot of it is paid. To stand out now on social media, different content placements, a lot of it is paid, and that's going to help you build your marketing funnel. So I think when you overlook the three and how they fit together, communications at the top, public relations, and marketing, you want to think about like, what are our goals as a brand right now? And the best case scenario is you're able to do everything. You're able to invest in PR over the long term. As we know, and studies have shown, people need to see things many times and hear about something many times before they actually make a purchase decision. Right. Some studies say 7 times, 10 times, 12 times. Like, PR is part of that. You hear about a brand for the first time, you read an interview, you see a podcast, you start following the founder of the company, it starts to put you down that path. So PR is part of the touches. And really, if you can do that, build the reputation and influence while you're also trying to directly target your audience, build sales. That's important part of a company, but they work well together. And that's why at the MicDrop agency, we've made a conscious effort to offer both PR and marketing services in-house.
So who typically does your agency service? Like, is there a particular industry that you're focused on or growth stage of company?
Yeah, tech is our largest sector, and most of our clients are startups. So usually start with us around the Series A stage.
Yep.
And our job is to help them scale and grow. We want to help build their influence and awareness, of course, with their customers, but also with investors. That's part of the other category. Our startups are mainly venture backed. Okay. So there's a whole other set of communications and reporting and stakeholder management that goes into those sorts of relationships. We also represent a handful of entertainment clients and have worked with some reality TV stars in the space, work with a few authors. So those are the two primary sectors for us at the moment.
So what are you finding with this kind of like scale up company, like venture backed, quickly growing Series A plus company. Typically what I see is that there's this tendency to try and internalize marketing departments, depending on how much money has been raised and what the growth in headcount expectation looks like, right? But a lot of companies kind of like go out and they're like, okay, we need a 5-person marketing team, but then they churn fast, and that team can't handle the needs of facilitating growth to try and catch up with the investment dollars that have been put into a product. And then they do weird things like out-of-home campaigns that cost millions of dollars, target a specific geo that's not even relevant to them.
Right.
Are you seeing that? And at the same time, do people come to you when they find that they're underperforming within their marketing team internally, or that they're cognizant of the need to like package out a more robust offering by fractionalizing some of the marketing work?
It's interesting. And like, if you asked me this question a year ago, the answer might have been different.
Okay.
AI and content generation has completely changed so many fields, PR and marketing being one of them.
Okay, break it down. Everyone wants to know what's happening with AI.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way. If somebody wanted to write a press release a couple of years ago,
right,
that takes some skill and some knowledge and strategy of how to put that together. Now you go into ChatGPT, you can ask it to draft a press release. Is that initial output going to be the perfect thing that you should go live with? Absolutely not. But is it going to get you a good chunk of the way there? Yes, it will. So the value that agencies provide needs to be greater than just the simple basics of generating a press release and distributing it on the wire. That's like the minimum, you know. It's much more complex in terms of the right time to release, the right angle for the story, the pre-pitching that you do, the work that you do with journalists in advance, and the relationships that you build that help create a larger conversation and actually turn into meaningful coverage. How you tie that to the marketing campaign that you do, how you tie that to the paid ads that you do. It's a much bigger conversation, and it involves that's the skill. That's the skill that the human element brings to agency work, and why it matters to not just only be generating things with AI and then putting them out there.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I mean, this is the thing, like people can easily, quickly, cheaply kind of commission from automation a lot of this like functional content and functional output. But communications is about people. And it's funny because like literally sitting in the same space, I don't know if it was yesterday or day before, we had Jeffrey Hinton speaking about, you know, he was questioned, right, on this podcast that was, what was the podcast name? Dumb Girl Smart Questions, I think, is the
He was on this podcast?
Yeah, he was on this podcast.
Love that.
And it's funny because he's been here before for all sorts of different, you know, tech company clients that interview him. But this interviewer particularly flew from New York, and she's an ex-New York Times reporter that's kind of started this interesting show. But yeah, she was asking him, you know, there was this one question, which was kind of like, if you could get help solving a problem, essentially, like what's the problem you can't solve? He thought for a while. And then he said, look, this sounds really nerdy, but I want to understand how the human brain attributes weights to the different like kind of layers of data that we process in order to categorize data, because it's something that hasn't been solved, and definitely not in this like neural net model that is being pursued by the LLM companies, by the AI companies. So it's kind of interesting that like the godfather of AI, who's responsible for creating a lot of the seminal research for neural networks that has informed all of this new technology that everyone's using every day, you know, does attribute a delta to biology. And funnily enough, I think everyone wants to buy into the belief, especially in business today and the quicker, cheaper, faster modality, that like everything is calculative and that we can automate everything. It's this like post-industrial mentality, right? But yeah, it comes back to communications, and people need to communicate with people.
Yes,
you know,
fundamentally,
so
that's what it's about.
That's what it's about. And that's what business is, not just about, you know, digitized, automated transactions, because then you wouldn't be in business, you would be in crypto.
Yeah.
Like,
it's different. And to answer your previous question about, how are startups thinking about their marketing departments now?
Right.
It's different because now what I believe is going to be essential more than ever are really good project managers. And I believe that across many different fields, but especially in our industry. We have lots of information. We have lots of sources that we can go to for information or for generating ideas or for content creation. But how do you actually decide what is the right strategy? There's a judgment call to that. And then how do you actually execute upon that strategy? And that was the thing that I saw a huge gap in our industry. There was, people coming in as consultants, and everybody wants to be a consultant, charging like a premium retainer and let me drop my ideas and my wisdom upon you. But it's a whole other thing to actually be like, okay, now I have to execute on all those ideas that I proposed and won everybody over with. And so we're doing both, right? Like, companies bring us on, clients bring us on to say, what do we have to work with here? What do we believe are the right approaches? Let's look at the demand gen side. How are we going to help you reach your target ICP as quickly as possible? How do we find product market fit?
Right.
What are the ways we can test that quickly? How do we think about budget and what's the most cost-effective way to do that? And also, how do we build your larger brand and build your larger brand awareness? So I think startups have deadlines and schedules, venture-backed startups more than ever, that they have to meet, and their metric is growth. So they look for not necessarily I need to build a 5-person marketing team, but who are the people, the right people that are going to deliver the results that are going to get us to that next level that we need to reach.
Well, I think this is it, is that like leading up to, let's call it the capital crunch, of the last few years, it's seemingly very easy for quick scaling companies to figure out the like difficult bits to do with organizational structure and efficiencies of operations and bottom line impact and sustainable growth on the balance sheet by their models. It was easy to ignore that until you hit such a point that, like, I don't know, you're public, right?
Yeah.
It's like people literally were like racing to go public to then have enough cash to ride out figuring out product market fit after the fact, But the slush funds aren't available for non-lean companies that don't have that, real operating model anymore. So it's cool to hear that the feedback is that like operators that you're working with are looking for efficiencies and they're looking for agency, utility, value.
Totally.
Okay, so let's talk about this idea of like, because I'm sure this plays into your work a lot, but the idea of founder-led growth and founder-led companies and how, founders and leadership in early stage companies, if you have any tips for how leaders can kind of present themselves in a way that is outside of the company, but at the same time supports the mission and growth of companies. Does that factor into your work?
It absolutely does. I think public relations before, you have your spokespeople in traditional PR that you would book for media interviews. But now the founders or the CEOs or the executives themselves are media outlets. They're able to generate and create their own content. And sometimes people find out about a brand. Oftentimes people are finding out about a brand through a person, right? You hear about the founder first, and then you kind of go check out the company. Mm-hmm. And for larger companies, sometimes like all the way down your employees chain, you have people creating brands left, right, and center and potentially representing your business. So there's a lot of different things to consider when you're talking about that. But for founders who are thinking about how do I be strategic with building a personal brand and thought leadership? I think it's really important to first ask yourself, in order to be successful with my company, which areas do I need to be seen as an expert in? What are some of the pillars that are going to make me like the right person to talk about these brand values, the services that we offer? And I think that should be the center point of your content strategy. So, how do I position myself that way? Some of our clients, we work in a wide range of sectors. We are industry agnostic, but some of our clients, we have quite a few clients in the construction tech sector currently, which is pretty cool. So how do they build, the software that is helping power some of the largest general contractors across North America, help them do work more efficiently in pre-construction, help them take legal contracts that are 500 pages and condense them into something that's readable and actionable within seconds. Like, these are the types of companies that we're representing. And so for them, it's thinking about your particular niche. What can I own? What can I have a voice in? And when we're evaluating a new client, we're looking to see, like the first thing we're looking at with a PR lens is, what are the areas that we can really highlight? Sometimes the founder has a crazy educational background. Sometimes the founder, worked in the industry previously. Maybe they were a general contractor themselves or a tradesman and working on the field. And they saw a problem and then built a solution for it. Sometimes it's this amazing CTO that somebody's brought in that has a highly technical background and this tech is out of this world. Sometimes it's the corporate culture or the culture that the company's building that's really unique. So we're constantly trying to look at if you had to pitch a journalist and you had to get somebody excited about your company, what would be the couple things that you would highlight? And those things are what you should really lean into when you're thinking about your content approach, especially as a founder.
Okay, now this is interesting because, of course, powerful help to be the insider outsider as an agency attached to a company, because you can kind of see some of those values that if someone's stuck in the nuts and bolts of their business, they're not necessarily going to be like objective about, right? In often cases, founders probably get into, they start a company and they start running it, and then they kind of like forget what their initial motivations are, especially if you're venture backed and you're kind of thinking about scale and it's frightening, the need to scale. So I guess, how can founders who are just getting started, what are the tips that you have for them to be able to develop these kind of skills at like being objective about their mission, mandate, and articulating it?
It's a good question. I think starting with why. Simon Sinek's correct. People buy into the mission behind why it is that you do what you do. You've got the what and you've got the how, but fundamentally, what is the greater purpose? And I often challenge founders and companies to think about, we're helping clients write their mission and vision statement. A mission, what are we setting out to do? But your vision statement is, what would the world look like if your product, your service succeeds in its mission? Right. How does that make the world better?
Right.
So I think doing a little bit of initial reflection on that is so important. I also think, we work with founders and we work with teams who sometimes aren't the most comfortable being in the spotlight. So it's also about finding a channel that works for you. But if you're speaking to the pain that your target audience is facing, that's real, right? Like, here are the challenges. I know you're dealing with this, or I know it feels like this. Now you're really creating like a relatable conversation and setting up that trust that you can now offer some recommendations and you can offer some solutions. And so, choosing the right medium. Not everybody is jump on camera kind of person.
Like me.
You're not that?
That's all I do. No, I do jump on camera.
I was like, okay, you would be like,
I don't know anyone else who owns like 50 cameras.
Yeah, if you were to tell me that you didn't like being on video, I wouldn't believe it after this. But yeah, video is the medium, the hot medium right now, right? It's one of the hot mediums, so it's encouraged. But if somebody is absolutely not comfortable with that, maybe it's getting somebody else in your team who is comfortable to do that part. And maybe for you, you focus on writing, Substacks and newsletters and contributing like opinion editorials. Those could be other ways that you're able to communicate this. So you do want to be hitting all of the mediums, but the founder doesn't necessarily need to be on all of the mediums if they're not comfortable with a certain channel.
What do you think? Okay, so this is kind of like the underlying note here maybe is there's about comfort, but also confidence. And I think that's something that's powerful in terms of looking at, I guess it could be any stakeholder. I always think about business, so I'm thinking about customers, partners. People love entrusting their destiny to confidence, to other people's confidence, So what can you say about confidence as an aspect of, brand, as an aspect of communications and marketing strategy?
To me, you build confidence when you see the results of your work. It's just like my previous life, I worked with youth and I used to talk to them about self-esteem and building that. And I'd get that question all the time, like, how do I become a more confident person? And I don't think you just like wake up one day or like trick yourself into being more confident. I think one, you make it an intention, you make it a focus, but you sort of build confidence by like achieving small wins for yourself, building trust with yourself. So little things like, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to like say my morning mantra kind of thing, or my morning prayer. I'm going to work out, 3 to 5 days a week. I'm going to try to eat healthy, drink water. Like those are all little things that you can be doing that are steps toward a healthier lifestyle that help you feel better about yourself. But just even the action of actually delivering on the things that you've promised yourself help build confidence. And so I think the same thing can be applied to brands and to founders. Like you build confidence when you see that your product or service is making a measurable impact in somebody's life. It's actually changing things. It's making things better. So I think leaning into that, and I always advise clients whenever they're being interviewed or, speak to what you know. So once you've seen those success stories with your customers, talk about it. That's a really safe place to go where you can actually give a case study, an example of here's a challenge, here's the solution, and here's how it's making their life so much better.
Can you offer us one of those?
A case study from a client?
Yeah, I think particularly if there's an anecdote that you could share from your kind of portfolio of clients that speaks to this idea of kind of how communication strategy can draw on different things, right? So how companies need to be, or how companies have worked with you on that PR piece of kind of like the long-term brand building, earned media side of things, whilst concurrently thinking about more actionable access to market.
Yeah. Our very first client, James Benham, serial entrepreneur from Texas, he had built and sold a company in construction tech. It was called SmartBid. Very successful, built a big name in the construction tech space, but was now on to his next venture, which was insurance tech. Oh, so wow. Quite a different pivot, quite a different lane. And he came to us really to help him build his brand in this entirely new vertical. And so one thing that was great about him is James understood the value of investing in PR and the brand awareness while he also was working on his marketing efforts. And so from a PR perspective, a few things that we started to do right away. One, you start to shape the bio and the assets to now be very insurance focused. How do we build some initial credibility and some initial wins in this new vertical? So you look for like low-hanging fruit. Is there an insurance podcast that we can get James on? Are there blogs in the space? Like starting with lower tiered media, just as a place to start building his credibility and building his expertise. We also looked at speaking. And, getting on the right stages is a fantastic way to build your credibility, get your brand in front of the right audience. So we started, pitching and submitting him for different opportunities on all of the insurance stages throughout the US, throughout Canada, even some global stages as well. And it takes time to build that reputation.
Right.
It takes time to build that expertise. He had also published a book around that time all about bootstrapping. He's a very passionate bootstrapped entrepreneur, which you would appreciate.
Yeah, I need to meet him at some point.
You need to meet him. Yeah, he's a pretty fun guy. And his book, we did the PR for that and did a targeted campaign that also allowed him to open some doors in insurance as well, giving some of these bootstrapping principles and lessons that he thought could apply to a wide range of industries, insurance being one of them. And so that sort of combination effort, over the last couple years went from being a completely new entrant into insurance tech to now speaking on all of the major insurance stages each year, wow. 12 plus stages a year, just in insurance, not to mention like other opportunities, some of the biggest ones, getting invited on the most watched podcasts in the space, getting invited to contribute opinion editorials in some of the largest trade publications. And he built a podcast at the same time, which I think is also a really important strategy to do. You should also own some content. And so once we're working with a client, we can go pitch you to be a guest and we can go pitch you to be an expert, and that's an important part. But you should create some sort of anchor content for your brand and for what you do. So
does that have to be, because I think we get this a lot. A lot of people ask me, they get freaked out by the potentiality of how much content they can generate versus what's necessary. Where people find their mark is a big question on a commitment to, like, whether it's our commitment, like how much time is this going to take, and what the method is to get stuff out of my brain. So, how did you rule set in the beginning with this client, and how has that changed about the time commitment to give you what you need to work with, to create assets and get them out there and all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think you decide on your strategy for the owned content that you're going to build. And there's a couple ways to think about it. One is you kind of just try to build, and if you're direct to consumer, this probably makes more sense for you. You try to build something that's going to have like larger mass appeal. You're going to try and get like thousands of listeners plus millions of listeners is the ultimate goal. You're going to maybe look for high profile talent that you can bring on that can help expand the exposure. You sort of think about it that way. Another way of thinking about it, though, which we've done a lot with our B2B clients, is you think about your owned content as a sales strategy. So instead of just inviting the celeb to come on your show, you actually just invite people who could be prospects,
right,
or who are customers.
Right.
And you talk about things related to that industry and related to the space that are very
real talk.
relevant.
Real
talk.
Yeah.
Real talk. And so, we've seen how our clients have added that owned content, whether it's a podcast or a LinkedIn video series or some sort of newsletter that they're building, and they've actually turned that into part of their sales strategy. So you bring in a guest, you bring in some leadership, and then you're able to actually take that and follow up with those individuals, book meetings afterwards. It's a chance for people to get to know you in a whole new way. So I think there's lots of creative ways that you can think about the content that you produce.
Looking forward, because we're at the end of 2025, looking forward into 2026, one thing we're doing here at Startwell a lot for clients, and I've told you a little bit about the new positioning of us being like stages and studios, and so we have a lot of like creative capacity for corporate clients.
Which is really cool, by the way. I think this is a really novel concept.
It's kind of nuts because for clients that want to turn on, like, just open up the taps for inbound through creating flywheels out of like community engagement and like IRL events, and then content, the output of those events, but also studio productions that are strategic. These kind of owned assets are very easy when you have the infrastructure to create them, is the posit. So looking forward into 2026, we're seeing this like community and content play being super powerful for B2B lead generation, but also rapid brand building. And that case study kind of like sells the point, right? Is like you need to create access to the audience of whatever stakeholder you want to engage. And the best way to do it is media. Like, you have to use media, and you can't wait for people to discover you. So how do you do that? You forge relationships that get you in front of the people you need to be in front of. And then content that reinforces that validity, but also offers value back, right?
Yes, absolutely. We talked about this. It's like, how do I get as many touches as possible with my target audience? Where do they live? What do they read? What do they watch? What do they listen to? What events do they attend? Who are the influencers in the space that I need to connect with that I can host our own event and invite them to?
Yeah.
I try to get on stages of other events. I'm trying to show up in all of the media channels where the target audience is. Or to your point, like building content. And I think sometimes it can feel obviously like an investment. It takes time, it takes energy, and it takes money to do it right if you're going to build a good strategy in all of these areas. But I want to challenge people to think about how can they repurpose the things that they do, and with one investment, with one investment at a time, with one video shoot, with one podcast recording, whatever it is that you're doing, how can you take that and squeeze as much juice from it as absolutely possible? You owe it to yourself to do that. And what do I mean by that? I mean, well, if you've booked a studio and you're recording and you're doing a podcast, why don't you extend that by a half an hour or an hour? And why don't you shoot some like direct to camera content? Why don't you book your thought leaders to come in from the company and they each get a little bit of a segment? So now we've got some content that's like direct to camera. We've got a bit more of like a podcast. Maybe there's like a paid ad that we want to record and we want to film. Like, you cover that all in that session. And then you look at how can I use this content? So just posting on social media organically for most companies is not enough, right? You need to maybe use that video and put it into your email sales sequence that's going out and outbound, or maybe add a budget and a paid ad spend behind those things to actually target the audience that you're looking to reach. So it's really thinking about how do I make the most of every single investment that I have with my marketing and my PR dollars. And the same things with PR. You get on a show, you get on a podcast, you get in a magazine, you get on a stage, capture it, film it, record it, repost it. Think about other ways that you can share that information. And that's really where you're going to see the biggest bang for your buck.
Totally. I think it's like audiences don't exist. This is my big mantra, right, for the next year. I keep telling clients this. Audiences don't actually exist. People who have been raised in the broadcast mindset, like watching linear TV, we've got this subconscious prime to assume that people are, one, always receptive to a message in the right time. Two, that people expect media to communicate to them in some sort of way that prompts in them an action. And three, that there's a kind of a divide between producer and consumer in the media landscape.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm looking at things today. And I say, well, that kind of audience doesn't exist. What does exist is the ability to communicate with people. However, people are communicating using a variety of media. So speaking specifically to video, to be able to put one piece of content out there on one channel, or even hybridize it into like an interview becomes 20 clips and you just keep posting them every day on the same channel, well, you're missing out on all the people on all the other channels. And at the same time, I mean, we see this on LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn's a massive superpower that most B2B executives are missing out on, right?
Hear, hear. Big LinkedIn fan.
Right? I feel like LinkedIn, if you look at connectivity through LinkedIn, it's such an opportunity. It's not just like any other social network where you're posting and then hoping you get engagement with your post. That's one part of the game. But even just messaging people and communicating with people and sharing information through the messaging with people is really powerful too. And also community building, introducing people to each other, clients to each other.
Yes.
Now you become the connective tissue, and it reinforces that action. They'll want to introduce you to other people. So there's lots of little ways that you can kind of do social hacks on LinkedIn. And particularly thinking about, this idea of kind of like the enshittification of everything online is something that's unavoidable. But it's not enough to say that that's happening and so you turn away from opportunity. And in fact, it is an opportunity in itself. Like enough thinking people on LinkedIn that fit within many people's ICPs are tired of also seeing crappy content.
Yes.
Reposted content. They scroll the feed for a bit. If they see one thing that's interesting because most of it's crap, they're going to pay way more attention to that one thing. And then there's the other thing that, like, you know, you can post the same thing multiple times over a period of time, or remix the same concept 5 ways, because each time it gets posted, it's not showing up to that same audience that we said doesn't exist. So if we think that like, oh, they already saw that, I need to give them something new. Well, maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
So catch them at a different time on a different day, or show the BTS of something that they've already seen, and it reinforces that they've seen it and they understand it now.
Yes. And I think sometimes people enter into a new marketing campaign and they'll be thinking, this is it. Like, this is the be all end all.
This is the one.
This is the one.
We're going to win everybody.
It's really unhealthy to do that. I think it's much better to have this like tinkerer, experimental tester mindset. We are going to test things. Look, there is no excuse for why we can't make informed decisions in our marketing efforts in today's day and age. We have data, we have analytics, we have numbers, we have watch time, we have engagement, we have click-throughs, we have all of it. So you know what is working and what isn't working very quickly. Try things and try things in as cost-effective of a way as possible. But if a certain format isn't working or isn't resonating with your audience, you try one style and you do it for a period of time. Each depends what it is, 3 months, 6 months, you test something. What are the responses like? Did any of these podcasts that I did any of them really pop off? Did any of them blow up? Did any of them have a lot of engagement? Why was that? Was it the guest that was on? Was it the way that this reel was cut? What are the reasons? You start like testing and hypothesizing about why something might be performing better than the others. And then from there, you pivot, you make small pivots and small tests. So try the same message in a couple different formats or in a couple different ways, and you see what's working, and you will literally know what's working because you have the data. So it's all about looking for the clues, looking where the data points you, and then trying to build on what is working, double down on it in different ways. And if you keep doing that, you're going to find the right way to meet your audience.
Now, again, a lot of this, I would say, that's exciting, especially to me, is the non-paid stuff, right? Like, if we're not talking about paid advertising, we're not talking about performance marketing, and we're saying, okay, well, how do I generate inbound and connectivity through things I don't spend anything more than my time on? That should be thrilling to people, because audiences, customers, stakeholders, everyone's just sitting there available. And I think that itself, perhaps going back to this idea of camera readiness, can be terrifying to some people, whether they're staff or whether they're founders and operators, is like, okay, well, the whole world's at our fingertips. What does that mean? What
do I do?
I want to hide. Yeah, what do I do? There's that whole and this is, I don't know. Do you remember when you first saw the Google search?
Yeah.
What do I type? What do I type? I don't know. What am I interested in? What do I want to know? It's kind of like that, and so I think strategy, to your point, I think having a strategy lined up about who you're trying to communicate with and what kind of message you're able to impart is really powerful, right?
Agreed.
You were at Alex Hormozi's acquisition.com warehouse or something recently?
A warehouse, yeah. I was. I signed up for a scaling workshop at acquisition.com headquarters in Vegas.
What is that? I wanted to bring up this anecdote because it's really intriguing to me. I've got a couple questions, but even for our audience, because I keep talking to people about this guy on the internet with like a wife beater and a big beard, and like he's the guy, if you search for business, he just keeps coming up on YouTube. And like 9 out of 10 people I talk to don't understand who this person is and why he's relevant to people. And I'm like, no, but if you're on YouTube, you'll know. So break it down for us.
He's got a great content engine and content machine behind what he does, just for the record. But yeah, Alex Hormozi and his wife, Layla Hormozi, this powerhouse entrepreneur couple. They've been at it for a while. They got started in the gym space. Alex ran his own gym, then realized there was an opportunity to help others launch their gyms, so created Gym Launch. They started a supplement company, a number of other companies that have really led to their primary business today, which is called acquisition.com. And what that is a company that invests and buys smaller companies and tries to 10x and scale them, right? Okay. That is what they do without bringing on outside investment.
So micro private equity.
Yeah, they are looking for companies that are performing at a certain level. Some of the industries I've heard them say that are particularly exciting to them right now are actually like brick and mortar, things like medical aesthetics businesses or beauty bars. They got a wide range. It's kind of agnostic in terms of what they look at. But if you're performing at a certain level with your revenue and numbers look good, they might be interested in possibly like acquiring your company and helping you scale it, right? So they offer this scaling workshop, and it's for companies that either aren't looking to or aren't yet ready or in a position to be acquired or to sell. But you're at a certain level of revenue and you're looking to get to the next level.
Okay.
And so it's often referred like once you hit your first like 7-figure revenue marker, around those first few million, that's usually when you're in the swamp. And that's a period where you're still working heavily in the business and you're trying to work more on the business and you're trying to be able to focus on growth and go to that next level. But there's a lot of challenges with that. There's a reason why a lot of companies like don't grow past that marker, because it requires a different leadership style. It requires a different management style. And it requires like putting some systems in place and making the right hires to kind of get to the 10 million, the 50 million, the 100 million goal. And so this workshop and what intrigued me about it was it's not another one of these like pep rally, like hurrah, like let's feel good about being entrepreneurs. It's a workshop. So it's 2 days. And the second day in particular for me was the highest value, where you actually break into small groups with the executives from acquisition.com. So their head of sales, their head of growth, their head of marketing, like all of the different leaders in their company that would help actually take the companies that they've invested in and scale them 10x. They're working with you in small groups and giving you tangible takeaways. That's what I loved about it. Tangible frameworks, ways to think about things. And you could ask questions. Like everybody who was there, it was the 100 of us at this particular event, you're in these small groups broken down, so everybody can ask multiple questions. And then there's one-on-one time to go talk to the individuals afterwards. There's a Q&A with Alex Hormozy. He comes down and does that with the audience too. So it was an amazing resource just as an entrepreneur at this stage, because one of the biggest things that they focused on was great CEOs don't think like managers. Great CEOs think like investors. And they're thinking about resource allocation. And one of the things that they've said is look at your business as an investor. If an investor were to buy your company or invest in your company right now, what would be like the first 5 things that they would change about how you're doing your business? That's what you should focus on. That's what you should double down on in terms of how do I get better at this? How do I build a better system? How do we scale the team? And I think that that's such a valuable thing for entrepreneurs who are growing their companies.
As a agency owner and as someone who brings systems to communication strategy for your clients, how did that jive with reinforcing kind of your perspectives on what you do, and also kind of like help you rethink maybe some of the stuff and the way that you bring value to market?
Yeah, I was absolutely participating in this workshop also like with the mind of our clients there, thinking about the startups that we work with. And I think it's helpful to be a team that knows about how startups work and knows about the different milestones in a company and knows a little bit about hiring best practices and scaling best practices and systems so that we can help recommend those. We can help implement them where it makes sense with the work that we overlap. So I think like fundamentally, it's exciting because we're sort of surrounded as an agency around people who have growth top of mind. It's not how do I just do status quo? Like we're not the agency that you hire when you just want to get the box checked of 3 posts per week and 1 blog, and that's not what we do. We're focused on growth because our clients are focused on growth. It's hey, here's our revenue now, here's where we want to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. How do we get there? And actually building strategies to those points.
Awesome. It was so nice spending some time to chat today.
This was great. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.